Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Amidst the towering skyscrapers of Manhattan, the Carter Enterprises Tower shone like a symbol of wealth and success. For decades, this family-owned company had dominated the luxury real estate sector. Everyone knew the name of the owner, Richard Carter, a respected, powerful, but also feared man. Yet, behind the glittering windows and elegantly decorated offices, the reality wasn't always so perfect. The rank-and-file employees, the ones no one really noticed, security guards, secretaries, cleaners, often murmured among themselves. Many complained about harsh management, a lack of recognition, and some even claimed that upper management had no idea what it meant to work hard every day. It is in this context that intervened Emily Carter, Richard's only daughter. 23 years old, beautiful, intelligent, but always protected by a golden cocoon, she was preparing for her future at university by studying management. But Emily was tired of theoretical courses, social events, and the condescending looks of those who saw her only as the boss's daughter. One evening, while talking with her father in his huge glass-fronted office, Emily dared to ask a question. "Dad, do you really know how your employees live their daily lives?" Richard Carter, surprised, leaned back in his leather chair. "I give them a salary, benefits, that's enough, right?" he replied, a little annoyed. Emily shook her head. "You know the numbers, the financial statements, but not the reality of those who run the company. If I ever succeed you, I want to know what they're going through, not just what the reports say." It was then that a bold idea germinated in his mind. An idea that would change much more than his own worldview. She would pretend to be a simple cleaning lady, hiding her identity, to observe the invisible workings of the company from the inside. She wanted to feel the fatigue of the long hours, endure the haughty looks, but also discover the truth about the people her father managed. Richard, initially reluctant, eventually accepted, intrigued by his daughter's courage. And so began an adventure no one could have imagined. Because what was supposed to be a simple stealth game was going to become a moving life lesson, full of humiliations, discoveries, betrayals, but also unexpected revelations. The next morning, Emily woke up in her luxurious bedroom, decorated with artwork and bathed in light. Yet, despite the comfort that surrounded her, she felt empty. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she thought back to her conversation with her father. She stood up abruptly and looked at herself in the large gilded mirror hanging on the wall. Before her stood a young woman with a perfect appearance, shiny brown hair, elegant clothes, refined perfume. But she whispered to herself, "You're not just the boss's daughter, you have to prove you're worth more than that." Determined, she went downstairs, where Richard Carter was already drinking his coffee, newspaper in hand. The room smelled of leather and freshly ground coffee. Emily sat down opposite him, her gaze straight ahead. "Dad, I want to do this. Not tomorrow, not in a month. I want to start right away." Richard looked up, intrigued. "Do you really want to work as a cleaner in my office? You have no idea how hard this job is. You'll be on your feet all day, you'll get no respect, and no one will spare you." Emily clenched her fists. "That's exactly what I want. I want to know what they're going through." A heavy silence fell. Richard slowly put down his cup, then sighed. "Very well. But you must be careful. No one must know who you are, not even those in charge. You will be working under a false name, and if anyone discovers the truth before your time, it will be a failure." Emily's heart was pounding. For the first time, she was about to leave her gilded world and dive into the raw reality of the company. Richard called discreetly Helen Brooks, the human resources director, a rigorous woman with a piercing gaze. As she entered, she frowned. "What am I to understand, Richard?" Richard gave a smile. "My daughter wants to become a housekeeper, incognito. Set up a new identity and a position for her. Starting tomorrow." Helen's eyes widened in shock, then looked at Emily skeptically. "Miss Carter, do you even know how to hold a broom?" Emily, her pride stung, held his gaze. Teach me. I'm ready for anything. Helen shook her head, half amused, half worried. Very well, then from tomorrow on, you will be Emma Collins. No one must suspect anything. Emily felt a wave of adrenaline rush through her. She had just crossed the point of no return. The next day, her former life of privilege would be put on hold. She would no longer be Emily Carter, heiress to a colossal fortune, but Emma Collins, a simple, anonymous cleaning lady. The next morning, Emily woke up well before dawn. This time, there was no designer gown or elaborate makeup. Helen Brooks had given her a cleaning lady's uniform the day before, baggy black pants, a plain gray shirt, and cheap shoes that already hurt her feet. She tied her hair back into a tight bun and looked at herself in the mirror. In front of her, Emily Carter was missing. In its place there was Emma Collins, an ordinary young woman, without jewelry, without makeup, without any particular shine. No one will recognize me, she whispered, taking a deep breath. At 6 o'clock sharp, she arrived in front of the gigantic building of Carter Enterprises. The automatic doors opened and she stepped inside, immediately feeling the weight of stairs, hurried businessmen, tailored secretaries, elegant receptionists. No one really paid her any attention. She was invisible. In the basement, where the maintenance staff had their locker room, the reception was much less neutral. A robust woman in her 50s, with graying hair tied back in a ponytail, looked her up and down. "Are you the new girl?" she asked dryly. "Yes, my name is Emma." Emily replied hesitantly. "I'm Linda." "Here, you work hard, no unnecessary breaks, no chatter. And if you think that because you have a pretty face you'll be taken care of, think again." Emily lowered her head, taking in the hostility. Another employee, a tall, imposing man with a badge supervisor, came forward. It was Mark Thompson. He crossed his arms and looked at her as if she was nothing. "You arrive on time, that's something. But remember, I'm your direct superior. You do what I say, when I say it. And if you dawdle, you're out of here. Understand?" "Understood," murmurs Emily. Linda snickered, handing him a bucket and a mop. "Come on, princess. Welcome to the real world." The rest of the day was hell. Emily had never scrubbed floors for hours, emptied so many trash cans, or carried heavy bags of trash. Her hands were already red and sore. The heels of her cheap shoes cut into her skin. In the hallways, office workers walked past her without even a glance, some even avoiding eye contact. She realized what it meant to be invisible in a world where only suits and ties seemed to matter. Yet not everyone treated her badly. Late in the afternoon, a smiling, dark-haired woman, younger and warmer than Linda, spoke to him. "Hi, my name is Maria. Don't mind Linda, she's tough on everyone. You're doing well for a first day." Emily gave a grateful smile. "Thanks, it's harder than I thought. You'll get used to it. Here, you either develop a tough skin or you crack." Emily realized that her week was going to be much more trying than she had imagined. She had wanted the truth, and she was already beginning to taste the bitterness. As she left the building that evening, exhausted, her hands shaking, she was no longer Emily Carter the heiress. She had truly become Emma Collins, the cleaning lady no one noticed. Emily's second day was even more difficult than the first. As soon as she entered the basement locker room, she felt all eyes turned toward her. The other cleaners whispered, exchanging mocking smiles. Linda, still stern, said in a dry voice. "So, new girl, did you survive your first day? Your hands aren't too sore, I hope?" The others burst out laughing. Emily swallowed her humiliation, picked up her bucket, and left without answering. In the company's glittering corridors, the first judgments began to fall. Every employee seemed to catalogue her with a single glance. In the 12th floor office, an assistant in a beige suit looked her over. "Could you hurry up? I have an important meeting. Wipe this table down thoroughly, I don't want a single trace of dust." Emily lowered her head, rubbed silently, then heard the assistant whisper to her colleague. "This one won't last a week. You can see them right away, the little princesses who think it's easy. The words stung her heart. She gritted her teeth to keep from replying. Soon after, she crossed paths again. Mark Thompson, the supervisor. He was holding a clipboard and stopped dead in his tracks when he saw her. Collins. Do you think this is a walk in the park? Hurry up, you still have 2 floors to clean before noon. Yes, sir, souffla Emily. But Mark didn't stop there. He glanced at his worn shoes. You know, no one here feels sorry for the weak. If you want to survive, stop looking fragile. Do you want to be called little doll? A burst of laughter echoed behind him. It was Linda passing by. Emily felt her face flush, but she remained silent. She knew that one wrong word could ruin her plan. However, not everyone looked at her with contempt. Late in the morning, while she was carrying a bag of garbage that was too heavy for her, David Miller, a security guard, came to her rescue. Tall, strong, with kind eyes, he wordlessly took the bag and carried her to the premises. Emily, surprised, dared to ask. Why are you helping me? David shrugged. Because everyone needs a helping hand, especially in the first few days. Here, most people forget that behind a uniform, there is a person. Emily stood there for a moment, touched by his words. The contrast was striking. Some saw her as a mere cleaning lady unworthy of attention, others already guessed her worth. But what no one knew was that the new girl was observing and remembering everything. She saw who treated people with respect, and who abused their power. She now understood that her experience would not only be a physical ordeal, but also a revealer of the true face of Carter Enterprises employees. On the 3rd day, Emily arrived on the 14th floor, an area reserved for senior executives. The offices were spacious, decorated in marble and dark wood, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. This was where the highest-ranking officials of Carter Enterprises, and it was also there that the humiliations reached their peak. Emily, intent on her work, was cleaning the office of the deputy director, a man known for his arrogance. On the table, a steaming cup of coffee sat next to a stack of files. As she wiped it down, she made a clumsy gesture. The cup tipped over, spilling the brown liquid onto the papers. Oh no, she exclaimed, grabbing towels to mop up. But it was already too late. The door opened abruptly and Mark Thompson, his supervisor, entered. His gaze immediately fell on the disaster. Are you kidding me, Collins? Do you know how important these documents are? He yelled, his voice echoing throughout the entire floor. Emily froze, her hands shaking. I'm sorry, sir. I'll clean it up right away. Mark cut her off with a contemptuous laugh. Clean? You think a mop is going to fix that? You just ruined a morning's work. Unbelievable, you can't even wipe down with a cloth. A few employees came out of their offices, drawn by the commotion. They gathered in the hallway, some hiding mocking smiles. Look at this, Mark continued theatrically, this is the perfect example of what not to hire. A brainless rookie. Emily felt her cheeks burn. Her eyes watered, but she forced herself not to cry in front of them. She lowered her head, whispering softly. I'm sorry. Mark snapped his fingers and called Linda, who was passing by. Linda, show her how we work. Maybe when she sees you, she'll understand what efficiency means. Linda, delighted to have the opportunity to push it, began to clean in front of everyone, with quick and exaggerated gestures. See, kid? It's not complicated. But you have to be a little talented to do it. Laughter erupted around her. Emily felt her heart clench. She wanted to scream who she really was, to remind Mark and Linda that she wasn't a good-for-nothing, but she remained silent. Because she knew that if she spoke, her plan would fall apart. She simply clutched the rag in her hands, swearing to herself that this humiliation wouldn't break her. She was taking it, but she was watching, and soon, the time would come to pay. The day after her public humiliation, Emily went to work with a heavy heart. Every step toward the glass building felt like a ton. She wondered how long she could last. In the locker room, Linda didn't miss an opportunity to tease her. "So, princess, ready to spill another coffee today?" she said, laughing. Emily just lowered her head. She'd learned that ignoring was better than responding. Yet, in the midst of this hostility, she was about to discover another side of the company. Late that morning, after emptying several trash cans, Emily sat down for a few seconds in a deserted hallway to catch her breath. Her hands were red, covered in small cuts from cleaning products. Her stomach was growling. She hadn't eaten anything since breakfast, and she still had several hours of work left. It was then that a soft voice called out to him. "You haven't eaten, have you?" Emily looked up and saw Maria, the brunette cleaning lady who had spoken to him kindly on the first day. She was holding a plastic box. "Here. This is a sandwich I made this morning." "I made two, so take it." Emily hesitated, embarrassed. "Oh no, I can't accept." "Stop, you need strength. Here, if we don't help each other, no one will do it for us." Moved, Emily accepted and ate in small bites, thanking Maria with a sincere smile. Later that day, while trying to carry a huge bag of cleaning supplies, she tripped on the back stairs. The bag slipped, ready to fall over, but a firm hand caught it at the last moment. It was David Miller, the security guard. "Easy, Emma. These bags are too heavy for you," he said calmly. I have to learn, I want to show that I can do it," she replied, breathless. David smiled slightly. "Learn, yes. But not at the cost of breaking your back. You know, some people here will walk all over you if you let them. But there are others who see the true value in people." Emily remained silent, touched by his kindness. She realized that in this harsh world, there were still kind souls. At the end of the day, as she was putting her things away in the locker room, Maria sat down next to her. "Don't let them discourage you, Emma. You'll see, those who laugh today may be those who fall tomorrow. I believe in you." These words resonated deeply with Emily. She understood that even in the most invisible positions, there were silent heroes, those who worked with dignity, courage, and kindness. And deep down, she made a promise to herself. When her identity was revealed, Maria and David would not be forgotten. It was a weekday evening. Most of the office workers had left the building, leaving only the maintenance workers and a few security guards. Emily, tired but focused, was cleaning the 10th floor. The silence hung heavy, broken only by the scraping of her mop on the floor. As she walked past the glass-enclosed meeting room, a light that was still on caught her attention. The door wasn't completely closed. She heard voices inside. She approached discreetly, her bucket in hand to appear busy. "Listen, Mark, you keep this up and we all win," said a deep voice that she didn't immediately recognize. "Don't worry," replied Mark Thompson, his supervisor, "no one will notice. I'll inflate the bills for cleaning products, you sign, and we split the difference. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Emily's eyes widened. Her heart raced. The other man, probably a supplier, snickered. "What if your boss finds out? Richard Carter?" Mark raised his voice in contempt. "He's too busy playing the CEO. He'll never look at maintenance bills. We're invisible to him. He won't suspect a thing." Emily felt her anger rising. So here was the truth: not only was Mark mistreating his employees, but he was also stealing from his father's business. Suddenly, Mark's chair creaked. Emily realized he was getting up. Panicked, she pretended to scrub the hallway floor vigorously. The door opened and Mark appeared, surprised to see her there. "You? What are you doing here at this hour?" he asked, his eyes suspicious. Emily immediately lowered her head. I'm cleaning the floor, sir." Mark stared at her for a moment, then gave a cold smile. "So make sure it shines. And I don't want to hear anything, understand?" "Understood, sir," she whispered. He closed the door behind him. Emily felt her legs tremble. She had almost been caught. As she returned to work, only one thought haunted her. If I reveal what I heard now, my identity will be discovered. But if I keep silent too long, Mark will continue to steal from my father and humiliate others. This secret was becoming a weapon. And sooner or later, she would have to decide when to strike. The day after her discovery, Emily tried to remain calm. But every time she caught Mark Thompson's eye, she saw the scene from the day before again, his shenanigans, his inflated bills, his arrogant laughter. She had to remain cautious. But Mark wasn't fooled. He had noticed her hesitation in the hallway, her nervous expression. That day, he decided to test the new girl's loyalty. During his lunch break, he called him into the maintenance room. The cramped room smelled of detergent and dust. Mark stood with his arms crossed, a stack of documents in his hand. "Collins." His voice was icy. "I have a favor to ask of you." Emily swallowed. "Yes, sir." Mark placed a piece of paper on the table. It was a delivery slip. But Emily understood immediately. The items listed, dozens of boxes of household products, had never been delivered. "You will sign here," he said, tapping his finger on the signature area. "You confirm that the goods have arrived." Just a formality. Emily felt a cold sweat run down her back. "But I didn't see any of that. We didn't receive those boxes." Mark narrowed his eyes, a wicked smile playing on his lips. "You're new, Collins. And you want to keep this job, right? So you sign, and you don't tell anyone. Understand?" Emily froze. Her heart was pounding. If she signed, she'd become an accomplice. If she refused, she risked being fired, or worse, arousing Mark's suspicions. She took a deep breath and shook her head. "I'm sorry, sir. I can't sign something that's false." Mark's smile instantly disappeared. His eyes became hard as steel. "Are you refusing? Do you realize who you're talking to?" Emily looked down but held firm. "I would rather lose my job than lie." Mark approached slowly, so close she felt his breath. "All right, Collins. But remember one thing, you just made a big mistake. And trust me, you're going to regret it." He snatched the paper from the table and stormed out of the room, leaving Emily alone, trembling. That day, she realized that she had attracted a dangerous enemy. Mark knew she wasn't like the others. And Emily knew that sooner or later, he would try to get rid of her. The week was drawing to a close. Emily, physically and mentally exhausted, reflected on everything she had seen, Linda's cruelty, Mark's arrogance, but also Maria's quiet kindness and David's silent loyalty. She knew that her time as Emma Collins was approaching the end. But she still didn't know that the decisive moment was coming sooner than she thought. This Friday morning, an announcement echoed through all the corridors of Carter Enterprises. Mandatory general meeting at 10 a.m. in the main conference room. The intrigued employees hurried toward the main hall on the 15th floor. Emily followed discreetly, still in her cleaning uniform, bucket in hand. Upon entering, she was struck by the size of the room, long tables, leather armchairs, giant screens hanging on the walls. Every employee was there, from the lowest-level maintenance worker to the assistant managers. Discussions were lively. Linda whispered to a colleague. "Do you think there will be layoffs?" Mark, on the other hand, seemed confident. Arms crossed, smile on his face, he gave orders in a low voice, as if he was already in control of the situation. Suddenly, the door opened, Richard Carter entered. Immediately, a solemn silence fell. His imposing appearance, his dark suit and his determined gaze were enough to command respect. He walked slowly to the platform and spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have brought you together today for a very special reason. I would like to introduce someone to you." All eyes turned to him. Emily felt her heart race. She understood what was about to happen. Richard gave a mysterious smile. "Among you, for a week, there has been someone you think you know, but you have completely ignored." The employees exchanged worried glances. Mark frowned. Richard suddenly pointed to the back of the room, where Emily stood, still dressed in her uniform. "This is my daughter, Emily Carter. For a week she worked among you, under the name of Emma Collins." A deathly silence fell over the room. Linda's eyes widened. Her face turned livid. Mark, on the other hand, suddenly turned pale, his lips trembling slightly. A shocked murmur ran through the room. The boss's daughter? Impossible. She was treated like a simple employee. Emily, trembling but determined, took a step forward. She felt dozens of eyes bearing down on her. This was her moment. The silence in the conference room was deafening. Every employee stared at Emily in disbelief. Even Linda and Mark seemed frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. Emily took a deep breath. Every emotion she'd bottled up since the beginning of the week, fatigue, frustration, humiliation, but also anger and determination, was coming to the surface. "I'm not here for revenge," she began in a clear voice, despite the trembling of her hands. "I'm here to tell you the truth about what's going on in this company, and about some people who think no one sees what they're doing." Mark's eyes widened. He felt the shadow of his betrayal hanging over him. Emily told everything. The humiliations inflicted by Mark and Linda. Employees despised and made invisible. And above all, the fraud she had witnessed the day before, the inflated bills and the embezzlement of money from the company. "I heard your conversation, Mark. You thought no one would see you, but I heard you." A murmur ran through the room. Some employees whispered among themselves in shock. Richard Carter, standing behind the desk, stared at his failing employee with icy anger. Mark Thompson. "Enough lies and humiliation. Your contract is terminated, effective immediately." Mark stammered, unable to formulate a single defense. I can explain." Richard shook his head. "There's nothing to explain. You abused your position and betrayed this company. You're gone." Linda looked down, ashamed. Richard continued. "As for those of you who have worked hard behind the scenes, and who have treated others with respect and humanity, you will be recognized and rewarded. Maria, David, your dedication does not go unnoticed." A bright smile lit up Maria and David's faces. Emily felt a wave of satisfaction and justice. She finished firmly. "This week has taught me one thing: every person, regardless of their position, deserves respect. And that respect must be given and received." The room erupted in applause. Some employees even shed a tear. The looks on their faces had changed, and Emily knew this moment would go down in company history. She was no longer just the boss's daughter. She was Ariel Force for change, and his experience had allowed the truth to triumph. The conference room, moments after the revelation, was still electrified with emotion. Employees murmured among themselves, some surprised, others relieved. Emily looked around. She had observed the faces of those who had been cruel, and those who had been just. Every reaction mattered. Mark Thompson, the arrogant former supervisor, was escorted off the premises by security. His departure left a palpable void. The fear and intimidation that had weighed on the employees was finally disappearing. Some let out a sigh of relief. Linda, the stiff housekeeper, approached Richard timidly. "Mr. Carter. I haven't been up to scratch. I promise to change." Richard stared at her sternly, then nodded slowly. "You'll get a second chance, but this time, respect must prevail. Understand?" Linda nodded, visibly moved. Then Richard turned to the employees who had been exemplary in their work and their humanity. "Maria, David, you have shown what it means to be a true pillar of this company. Starting today, you will be promoted and rewarded. Your dedication will never be ignored again." Maria and David exchanged a disbelieving smile. The other employees applauded them warmly. Emily finally stepped forward in front of everyone. She had been Emma Collins, invisible and humiliated, but she was now recognized for her strength and justice. This experience taught me that dignity and respect are not measured by the title we hold, but by our daily actions. Each of you plays an important role, and each of you deserves to be treated with humanity." The employees cheered. Some wiped away tears, others timidly congratulated her. The contrast between the beginning of the week and now was striking. In the days that followed, Mark was permanently dismissed, and his acts revealed to management. Linda followed a management training course human and radically changed his attitude. Maria and David became role models for other employees, publicly recognized for their work and their integrity. Emily resumed her true identity, but with a new understanding of the real world, ready to actively participate in his father's business with wisdom and empathy. At the end of this week, Carter Enterprises had changed. It was no longer just a shiny building on the outside, but a place where respect and humanity finally had their place. Emily smiled, looking fondly at her colleagues. Her undercover mission had ended, but the impact of her actions would last forever. And deep down, she knew one thing: true greatness comes not from name or fortune, but from how we treat those around us.